I remember the exact moment everything changed. It wasn't an explosion or a dramatic confrontation like you see in the movies. No, it was quieter than that. A whisper. The sound of a door creaking open, revealing what had been hidden behind it for far too long. I was standing in the break room of the hospital, sipping my lukewarm coffee, when my phone buzzed. I should have ignored it. I had already missed half my shift, distracted by the never-ending paperwork and the lives in my hands. But I didn't ignore it. I picked up the phone, and that was the moment I realized I'd crossed a line I couldn't come back from. It was a text message, just a few words. The kind of message that should have made me take a step back, but instead, it pushed me forward. You know the truth. It's time to face it. My breath caught in my throat. I'd been ignoring the nagging thoughts in the back of my mind for months, dismissing them as paranoia. But now they were here. They were real. I'm Dr. Olivia Harper, 34 years old, a pediatric nurse in a bustling children's hospital. On the surface, my life looks pretty normal. I work long hours, care for my patients, and try to find moments of peace when I can. I've always prided myself on being the reliable one. The one who doesn't break under pressure. But I'd been keeping a secret, and secrets have a way of finding their way to the surface, no matter how hard you try to bury them. I moved to this city for a fresh start after everything fell apart in my hometown. The trauma, the broken relationships, the mess I tried to escape from, it all followed me, of course. But I thought I had it under control. I thought I had built a life here that was bulletproof. A life I could keep hidden, a life where no one would know about the mistakes I had made or the things I'd done in the past. But that text message changed everything. It was like a trap I had walked right into, without even realizing it. Now, I couldn't escape. You might be wondering, how did it come to this? Well, I'll tell you, but it's going to take a while to explain. And trust me, you're not going to believe me when I do. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. The text was from an unknown number. This time, there were no words. Just an image. My stomach dropped as I clicked on the message. It was a picture of me. A picture of me in the hospital parking lot, standing next to a man I thought I had forgotten. A man I had hoped would never come back into my life. How did they find me? I had spent years pushing that man, and the life I once had, into the deepest part of my mind. I thought I was free. I thought I had outrun it. But now, staring at the photo on my screen, I realized I had never truly escaped. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my racing heartbeat. I could feel the walls closing in on me. I had worked so hard to build a life here, so hard to keep my past hidden, and now, it was all coming apart. It wasn't just the man in the photo, though. It was everything. The lies, the choices, the broken promises I had made to myself. I swallowed hard, trying to push the flood of memories away. But they weren't going anywhere. They were creeping back into my thoughts like ghosts that refused to stay buried. Olivia? Are you okay? I snapped my head up, startled by the voice. It was Rachel, one of the nurses I worked with. She had a concerned look on her face, but I knew what she was really asking. "Are you okay?" was just code for, "I've noticed something's off with you." I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a little distracted," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Rachel didn't buy it. She raised an eyebrow, her gaze drifting to my phone in my hand. She could tell something was wrong. But she didn't press. Not yet. I knew Rachel, though. She was a sharp one. She would figure it out eventually, just like everyone else would. I couldn't let that happen. I glanced at the clock on the wall. My shift was almost over, but I wasn't sure if I could make it through the rest of the day. I was already running on fumes. The constant stress of my job, the sleepless nights, the guilt that gnawed at my stomach. It was all too much. And now this new threat was hanging over me like a storm cloud, ready to burst at any moment. I needed to get out of here. I needed to think. To figure out what the hell was going on. But that wasn't going to be easy. Because, you see, it wasn't just about the past catching up with me. It was about the consequences of my actions. The choices I made, the ones I thought would stay buried. They were about to resurface, and I wasn't sure if I could handle it. I stood up, slipping my phone into my pocket and turning to Rachel with a forced smile. "I'll be fine. Just need a quick break," I said, my voice shaky despite my efforts to sound calm. Rachel didn't say anything else. She just watched me as I walked out of the break room and into the hallway. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew I needed to get out. To breathe. To calm my mind. So I stepped outside into the cool evening air, the sharp gust of wind cutting through my jacket. It was then that I saw him. He was standing across the parking lot, leaning against a car, his hands in his pockets. His eyes locked onto mine the moment I stepped out, and for a brief second, time seemed to stop. I froze. My heart slammed against my chest. It was him. The man from the photo. The man who had once been a part of my life. The man who had destroyed everything. I had tried to forget him, tried to move on, but now here he was, standing right in front of me, and I knew my life would never be the same again. He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile that told me everything I needed to know. He had come for me. The morning always started the same way. The faint buzz of the alarm clock dragged me out of sleep, its sound soft but persistent, demanding attention. I would stretch my arms above my head, feeling the familiar ache in my muscles from another long shift. But despite the exhaustion, there was always that sliver of peace that came with the quiet hours before the world woke up. The world I knew. My world. I got out of bed, careful not to wake my roommate, Emily, whose heavy breathing told me she was still lost in her dreams. The apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, but it was enough for the life I had carved out for myself. I moved toward the kitchen, making my way past the familiar clutter of books on the coffee table, a pile of mail that I had yet to open, and a half-finished cup of coffee I had left out last night in my haste. I wasn't much of a morning person, but I knew the routine. The coffee had to be brewed first, that's non-negotiable. The soft whirring sound of the machine was like a small comfort, a signal that the day was beginning, no matter how chaotic it might get. I poured the first cup, feeling the steam rise to my face as I took a sip. It burned my tongue slightly, but I didn't mind. It was the small things that made mornings bearable. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, casting a cool blue light through the kitchen window. The streets outside were still quiet, save for the occasional car driving by. I liked it this way, the world still in a kind of slumber, untouched by the demands of the day. It felt like I had this moment all to myself before the rest of the world came rushing in. I went through the motions of getting ready, a quick shower to wake up fully, brushing my teeth, and picking out my usual work uniform, scrubs and soft blue. I had learned over the years that the uniform didn't just serve a practical purpose, it helped me shed the person I used to be. The person who was too broken to care. The scrubs were my armor, a shield I could wear as I walked into the hospital and became someone else. Someone who could hold the hand of a dying child and not let it shake. By the time I was dressed, Emily had stirred, groggily pulling herself out of bed. I smiled at her over my shoulder, the quiet comfort of a shared morning routine hanging between us. We didn't talk much, but I liked that. We understood each other without the need for words. We were both survivors in our own right. I had come here to escape, and so had she. We were 2 souls, finding peace in the chaos of the city. I grabbed my bag, slinging it over my shoulder, and made my way to the door. "I'll be back around midnight," I called out, knowing she wouldn't respond. She was already lost in her own world, probably scrolling through her phone or getting ready for her own day. She worked nights, like me, so our schedules never aligned perfectly, but that was fine. We were used to it. The bus ride to the hospital was routine too. I took the same seat by the window, watching the streets blur past as the city came to life. The first signs of movement, people in suits rushing to work, joggers hitting the pavement, and street vendors setting up their stalls. I watched them all, the rhythm of their lives so different from mine. I had long since stopped pretending that I had a place in the world outside of the hospital. The was my home now. My family was the patients I cared for and the colleagues who worked beside me. When I stepped into the hospital, it was as if I was stepping into another world. The sterile smell of antiseptic greeted me, familiar and comforting, like a second skin. The hum of machines, the soft beeping of monitors, the shuffle of nurses and doctors, it all blended into a symphony I knew by heart. I walked down the hallway to the staff lounge, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. I didn't expect anything unusual to happen today. Not really. But there was something different about the air today. A strange feeling that prickled my skin, like a quiet warning that I couldn't quite place. Maybe it was the fact that I had been getting more and more text messages from unknown numbers. They came sporadically, each one more cryptic than the last. "You know the truth," the last one had said. "Time to face it." The words haunted me, but I buried them, pushing them to the back of my mind where I didn't have to deal with them. After all, I had more important things to worry about. Like my patients. I punched in my code to the staff lounge door, and the familiar faces of my colleagues greeted me. The room was buzzing with chatter, coffee brewing, and the shuffle of papers. Nothing unusual. I grabbed a cup, poured some coffee, and joined them, the weight of the world momentarily lifted off my shoulders. We were all in the same boat, all in this together. But even here, in this safe space, I could feel the pull of something darker, something lurking just below the surface. I didn't want to acknowledge it, but it was there, gnawing at me. And then, as if on cue, the loudspeaker crackled to life, the calm voice of the hospital administrator filling the air. "Attention, all staff. Code red in the immediate response required." My pulse quickened. The calm that had settled in me shattered like glass. I had been a nurse long enough to know that a code red wasn't something minor. It meant chaos. It meant life or death. I stood up, my legs stiff, the coffee forgotten in my hand. My colleagues rushed into action, grabbing their things, heading towards the elevator. I followed them, my heart racing now, the peaceful morning suddenly a distant memory. As I made my way down the hallway, I saw the first signs of the chaos unfolding. A stretcher rushed past me, the young patient on it barely conscious, surrounded by a flurry of nurses and doctors. I heard the hushed whispers of patients being moved into secure rooms, a hushed sense of urgency filling the space. I quickly scrubbed into the familiar chill of the sterile room greeting me. The team was already working, setting up for the worst, preparing for the storm that was about to hit. But nothing could prepare me for what I was about to face. A man, no older than 40, was rushed into the room. His body was battered, his face a mask of pain, but his eyes, those eyes, were full of recognition. My breath caught in my throat. It was him. The man from the text. The man from my past. The one I thought I had buried long ago. The world around me seemed to spin, the noise of the hospital fading as I stared at him. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't prepared for this moment to come crashing into my life again, but there it was. Everything I had worked so hard to forget, my past, my mistakes, the things I thought I could escape, was staring back at me. And in the chaos of the with blood on my hands and my heart racing in my chest, I knew that my seemingly ordinary day had just become the beginning of something far more dangerous. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. There was no turning back now. The storm was here, and I was about to be caught right in the middle of it. The noise in the was deafening, beeping machines, shouting orders, frantic nurses rushing in all directions. The harsh lights overhead flickered as if they, too, felt the tension in the air. I stood frozen for a second, watching the chaos unfold around me, my hands trembling as I scrubbed in. My mind was still stuck on the man who had been wheeled into the room. It couldn't be him. It just couldn't. But it was. I had seen his face 1,000 times before, in a past I had buried so deep that it seemed impossible to bring it back to the surface. His name echoed in my head, despite my best efforts to silence it, Ethan Blackwell. I had spent years trying to forget him, trying to forget everything that came with him. The lies, the pain, the way he shattered my world in ways I couldn't even begin to explain. We had shared a life together, once. A life I now wished I could erase from memory. And yet, here he was, lying in front of me, broken and bleeding, in need of the very thing I had been trained to give, help. As I approached his bedside, the rush of reality hit me harder than I could have imagined. He had been a part of my life. He had been my world at one point. Now, his blood stained my gloves as I tried to stabilize him, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't be feeling anything for him, not after everything that had happened. But there it was, the undeniable truth that I had tried to ignore for so long. Olivia, focus. Rachel's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts, pulling me back into the present. She was beside me now, hands deftly working as she assisted with the monitors, her eyes sharp. We've got this. I nodded, but my hands shook as I adjusted the 4-line, all the while unable to tear my gaze away from Ethan's pale face. His eyes were closed, but his breath was shallow, the faint rise and fall of his chest a reminder that he was still alive, still here. I swallowed hard, pushing the thoughts away. There was no room for memories right now. Not when his life was in my hands. I focused on the task at hand, the adrenaline of the situation grounding me for the moment. But in the back of my mind, a storm brewed, one I couldn't avoid, no matter how hard I tried. It wasn't until the attending surgeon arrived, shouting orders to the team, that the reality of the situation truly hit me. Ethan wasn't just in my hospital, in my care. He was here, in my world again. This wasn't just a random patient who needed help, this was the man who had once ruined me, and now I was the one who could either save or condemn him. Olivia, I need you to assist with the airway, the surgeon ordered, his tone sharp. I snapped into action, setting my emotions aside for the moment, focusing entirely on the medical procedures. My heart raced in my chest, but I pushed through it. As I worked, my mind kept circling back to him. Ethan. His face. His voice. The last time I had seen him, the last time I had ever wanted to see him. It had been 6 years since that night. 6 long years since I had packed up everything, left my old life behind, and moved to this city to escape. I had done everything right. I had built a new life, a new career, surrounded myself with new people. I had buried the past so deeply that it felt like a distant, painful dream I could never quite touch. But now, standing here in the with him lying on the table in front of me, I realized how much of that dream was still haunting me. My pulse quickened as I inserted the breathing tube, trying to keep my hands steady, trying to keep my emotions locked away where they belonged. Olivia, I need you to stay with me, Rachel said softly, noticing my distraction. Her voice was gentle but firm, the kind of voice that made you want to listen. She was my anchor, the one person I could rely on in moments like this. I nodded at her, finally finding my footing again, and focused solely on my patient. I had been through enough trauma in my life to know how to compartmentalize. I had learned that skill long ago, putting away my feelings, locking them in a box and throwing away the key. But this was different. Ethan's presence was a cruel reminder of everything I had worked so hard to forget. The hours seemed to drag by. The surgery was over, and Ethan had been stabilized, but it felt like the weight of the past was bearing down on me more than ever. I should have felt relief. I should have felt pride in saving a life, but instead, I felt nothing but dread. I walked back to the staff lounge, my hands still shaking, my thoughts scattered. I needed a moment to breathe, to gather myself. I stepped into the quiet space, closing the door behind me. The room was empty, a calm sanctuary amidst the chaos outside. But my sanctuary was short-lived. A familiar voice called my name from behind me. I froze. Olivia. I turned slowly, my heart skipping a beat. There he was. Ethan. Standing in the doorway, his face still pale, but his eyes locked on mine with a mixture of guilt and regret. "You're awake," I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. I immediately regretted them. I shouldn't have spoken to him. I shouldn't have acknowledged his presence. Ethan took a tentative step forward, his voice low. I need to talk to you." I backed away, my chest tightening. The last thing I needed was a conversation with him. The last thing I needed was for him to pull me back into his world. The world where everything had fallen apart. "What do you want from me, Ethan?" I whispered, barely able to keep the emotion out of my voice. "You've already ruined everything. You've already taken enough from me." His face crumpled as if the words had physically hurt him. "I never meant to hurt you, Olivia. I've made so many mistakes, but I swear, I've changed." I laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "Changed? After everything? After what you did to me? To us?" His eyes dropped to the floor, and I saw the flicker of pain there. The same pain I had seen in him so many years ago, the same pain I had tried to ignore. But now it was different. Now, it was directed at me. "I know you're angry. I understand," he said softly, his voice raw. "But I need you to know the truth. Everything that happened, it wasn't what you think." I closed my eyes, shaking my head. The truth. The truth. I had heard that excuse 1,000 times, and each time, it had been a lie. It had always been a lie. "I don't want to hear it, Ethan. Not now. Not ever." My words were like a final wall between us. I couldn't let him break through it. I couldn't let him back into my life, not after everything. But even as I spoke, a part of me wanted to hear what he had to say. A part of me needed to know. I turned away from him, my body trembling as the floodgates began to open. The last thing I expected was to be pulled back into his world once again. But here he was, standing in front of me, offering the one thing I had never wanted, answers. And I was terrified of what those answers might reveal. The hospital room was sterile and quiet, except for the soft beeping of the machines and the occasional shuffle of nurses' feet as they moved between patients. But I was far from calm. My hands were shaking, the harsh lights above too bright as I wiped the sweat from my brow. I stood by the window, staring out at the busy street below, my mind a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't seem to control. Ethan's face had haunted me since the moment he'd spoken. There was no part of me that wanted to listen to him, no part that wanted to believe the words he had said. And yet, the more I tried to push him away, the more I could feel his presence creeping back into my life like a shadow, consuming everything I thought I had moved on from. I could still hear his voice in my head. "I've changed. I never meant to hurt you, Olivia." The words felt like a knife to my chest. They were so simple, so pure, yet they held the weight of 1,000 memories, the lies, the betrayal, the promises broken. I couldn't understand it. How could he stand in front of me, after all this time, and say those words with such conviction? Didn't he know what he had done to me? To us? But in the back of my mind, there was a part of me, small and hidden, that wanted to believe him. I had been so sure that I had moved past it all. I had convinced myself that I was stronger than the person I used to be, that the girl who had loved Ethan was long gone. But now, standing in this cold, silent room, I realized just how fragile that illusion was. I rubbed my temples, trying to push away the rising tide of guilt. Why did I care? Why did I let him have this effect on me? After everything he had done, everything he had taken from me, I should feel nothing but anger. I should feel nothing but resentment for the man who had torn apart everything I had built. But here I was, standing alone in my room, wrestling with the mess of emotions I could no longer suppress. "He's a part of your past," I told myself, trying to make sense of it all. "Let it go. Move on." But it wasn't that easy, was it? Because the truth was, no matter how hard I tried to bury the past, no matter how many years had passed, there was still a part of me that hadn't forgiven him. And there was still a part of me, deep down, that wished things had turned out differently. The clock on the wall ticked away, each second reminding me that I couldn't stay in this state of limbo forever. I couldn't keep hiding from the truth. Not anymore. I had been living my life as though I had control, as though I could outrun the mistakes I had made. I had put up walls so high around my heart that I thought nothing could break through. But now, standing in this empty room, I realized how fragile those walls were. How easily they could come crumbling down. I needed to focus. I needed to remember why I had come here in the first place. My job. My patience. My purpose. But as I grabbed my stethoscope and moved toward the door, the weight of the situation pressed down on me again. How could I go back to the routine of my job? How could I walk into the look at my patients and pretend like everything was fine when everything felt so out of control in my own mind? My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of my thoughts. I pulled it out, hoping for some distraction, some way to escape the storm brewing inside me. But it was just another text message. From Ethan. Olivia, I need to talk to you. Please. I can't walk away from this without you knowing the whole truth. I stared at the words for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen, torn between answering him and pretending I hadn't seen it. My breath caught in my throat. He was still out there. Still trying to pull me back in. And I had no idea how to handle it. I wanted to scream at him, tell him to leave me alone. I wanted to tell him that I didn't care about his truth, his explanations, his apologies. I wanted to be strong. But instead, I sat there, staring at the message, my fingers trembling as I typed a reply. I don't need to hear your side. There's nothing left for you to say. As soon as I sent it, I felt a wave of relief. But it was short-lived. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure I believed it. And I wasn't sure I had the strength to keep pushing him away. Later that evening, I found myself standing outside the staring at the entrance. The weight of the day had worn me thin. I had worked, I had cared for my patients, but my mind kept drifting back to Ethan. To the life I had once shared with him. The life that now seemed like a distant memory. A life that I could never truly escape. It was hard to face the reality that the person I had tried to bury was still very much alive, still very much capable of turning my world upside down. But that was the truth, wasn't it? The past had a way of finding you, no matter how far you ran. Olivia? I turned at the sound of my name, surprised to see Rachel standing behind me. She had a concerned look on her face, her brow furrowed as she looked at me, no doubt sensing something was off. Are you okay? She asked, her voice gentle, yet insistent. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired. Rachel didn't seem convinced. I know you, Olivia. You're not fine. Something's going on. Talk to me. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. I couldn't bring myself to tell her what was really going on. How could I explain to her that the past was crashing into my present? How could I admit that I didn't know who I was anymore? That the person I had spent so many years becoming, strong, independent, focused on my work, was slipping away with every thought of Ethan? Instead, I forced another smile. Really, Rachel? It's nothing. Just a lot on my mind. She stared at me for a moment longer, clearly not buying it, but then she gave me a small nod and walked away. I watched her go, a feeling of emptiness settling in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't even be honest with her, the one person who knew me best. How could I explain this turmoil? This guilt? This fear that had consumed me ever since Ethan's face had reappeared in my life? The truth was, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle the mess I had made of my own life. I had spent so long pretending that I was in control, that everything was fine, that I had moved on. But now, standing here, with Ethan's presence still lingering like a shadow, I realized how much of a lie that was. The storm was coming. I could feel it in the air, like the calm before the thunder. I didn't know when it would hit, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for the truth. For the pain. For the weight of everything I had buried. And yet, there was no running from it now. I had to face it. I had to face him. And I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to survive it. The night was unreasonably cold for spring, the air biting at my skin as I stepped into the quiet courtyard behind the hospital. I had always come here to find some semblance of peace, the little oasis amidst the chaos of the Tonight, it felt more like a cage, my thoughts suffocating me, drowning me in the flood of everything I had been running from. I needed to think, to make sense of what was happening. But all I could see was his face, Ethan's face, staring back at me from the darkest corners of my mind. I tried to push him away, tried to ignore the growing tension in my chest, but it was impossible. Every decision I had made, every wall I had built around myself, felt as fragile as glass, about to shatter under the weight of the past. I stood there, in the dim light, staring at the city skyline, when I heard the soft scuff of shoes against the pavement. At first, I thought it was just the wind or a stray hospital worker. But then the voice came, cutting through the silence with unexpected force. "Olivia, we need to talk." I froze. The voice was unfamiliar, but there was something commanding in it, something that made me turn around despite every instinct in me telling me to run the other way. He stood there, leaning against the brick wall of the hospital courtyard, arms crossed over his chest. His presence was almost authoritative, the way he held himself. But it was more than that. There was a confidence in his posture, something that made him seem out of place in a setting like this. His clothes were far too clean, his shoes far too polished for the gritty hospital grounds. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice clipped, defensive. I had learned long ago to keep a distance from people I didn't know. Especially now. Especially after everything with Ethan. The man smirked, the corner of his mouth tilting up in amusement, but his eyes never left mine. He didn't look like a threat. He didn't even seem like a patient, but something about him felt off. As though he had been following me for longer than I realized. "Name's David," he said, pushing himself off the wall. "I'm here because you need to hear the truth, Olivia. And I'm the one who can help you get it." I narrowed my eyes. "Help me?" With what? I felt my heart racing again, the same old panic settling in as I processed his words. Was he talking about Ethan? Did he know about the text messages? Was this some kind of sick joke? David stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "I'm not here to play games. I'm here because you're in danger, Olivia. The past you've been trying to outrun? It's not letting you go. And neither am I." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, I'm in danger? Who are you?" He ignored my question, the flicker of a smile still playing on his lips. "I've been watching you for a while now. I know who you are, what you've been through. I know about Ethan. I know you thought you could leave him behind. But he's not the only one you need to worry about." The way he said it, so nonchalantly, made my stomach drop. The name, Ethan, felt like it had been branded into my skin, a reminder I couldn't erase. I stepped back, instinctively putting more space between us. But he followed me, his voice still calm, still too assured for my liking. "Look, I know this is a lot for you to handle, but I'm here to give you the answers you've been looking for. You've been asking all the wrong questions, Olivia. And now, you're going to get the truth. Whether you want it or not." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at him, tell him to leave me alone, but another part of me, somewhere deep down, wanted to listen. I had been living in a fog of confusion for so long, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. But now, with this stranger standing in front of me, offering something I didn't even understand, a part of me wanted to know. I wanted the answers. "Why should I trust you?" I demanded, my voice trembling with the mix of fear and curiosity. David shrugged, the movement casual, like this whole situation was just another day for him. "You don't have to trust me. You'll learn to. Eventually." His words were like a slap to my face, jolting me from the numbness I had been holding onto for so long. This man, this stranger, was offering me something I wasn't sure I wanted. But the weight of my past, the ghosts of decisions I couldn't undo, hung around me like a thick fog, suffocating me. And here he was, giving me a chance to break free of it. "I'm not here to make friends, Olivia," David continued, his voice dropping lower. "I'm here because I need you to help me, too. And trust me, if you don't, things are going to get a lot harder for both of us." A strange shiver ran down my spine. "What do you want from me?" David took a step forward, his expression unreadable. Ethan's not the only one you need to be worried about. There's a lot more at stake here than you realize. People in high places are watching you, Olivia. Watching everything you do. And they won't stop until they have what they want. I didn't understand. What do they want? David didn't answer right away. He seemed to be calculating his next words carefully, weighing the impact of each one. They want control. And you're the key. Your life, the choices you've made. They've set something in motion that's bigger than anything you can imagine. I shook my head, stepping back again, my heart pounding in my chest. This doesn't make sense. You don't have to understand it all right now, David said, his voice softening slightly. But trust me, you're about to be pulled into something much bigger than you are. And the only way to survive it is to take control. I felt a surge of frustration. I couldn't keep up. Every word he said felt like a puzzle piece I couldn't fit together. What the hell are you talking about? David's eyes locked onto mine, his face serious now, no trace of amusement. I'm talking about your future, Olivia. And the power you hold. The power that's been kept from you. My head spun. I had no idea what he meant. I'm just a nurse, I muttered, almost to myself. I'm not part of any of this. I don't want to be. He tilted his head, his gaze softening ever so slightly. You don't have a choice. It was like a bomb went off in my mind, the weight of his words crashing down on me. This man, this stranger, had just turned my entire world upside down with a few sentences. And yet, for some reason, I knew he was telling the truth. I couldn't ignore him. I couldn't pretend this wasn't happening. And as much as I wanted to run, as much as I wanted to deny it all, I knew that I had just crossed a line. A line I could never go back from. David's voice broke through my thoughts. I'm not your enemy, Olivia. But I am the one who can show you what's really happening. You're going to need allies, and I'm offering you that. I looked at him, my chest tight, my mind racing. An ally? Or another challenge? I had no idea. But something told me this was only the beginning. And the choices I made now would determine the rest of my life. I stood at the edge of the hospital's rooftop, the cold wind biting at my skin, my breath coming in shallow gasps. It was late, the city sprawled below me, its lights shimmering like 1,000 little promises that would never be kept. The sky above was dark, the stars faint and distant, as if even the universe itself was watching in silence. It had been a week since David had entered my life, since everything I thought I knew had been turned upside down. A week since Ethan's face had resurfaced, dragging the past I had spent so many years trying to bury back into my reality. And now, standing here, the weight of it all was crushing me. The truth was, I had no idea what to believe anymore. I had no idea what was real or who was manipulating me. David's words, his insistence that I was caught in something far bigger than myself, had seeped into my mind like poison. Every day since, the question had haunted me, what if he's right? I had tried to ignore it. I had told myself I was stronger than this, that I could handle whatever was coming. But now, standing on the edge of this moment, I realized I was far from in control. I had been running from the truth for so long, and now it was standing right in front of me, daring me to face it. I can't keep running, I whispered to myself, the words barely audible over the wind. But I knew I couldn't run forever. The past, with all its messy truths and painful memories, was here, pressing against me, threatening to break through the fragile walls I had built. And the hardest part? I wasn't sure I even wanted to fight it anymore. I had always prided myself on being the strong one, the one who kept it together when everything else fell apart. But now, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I didn't recognize the woman who had looked at herself in the mirror a week ago. She was confident, determined, and unshakable. She had everything under control. But now, she was lost. She was unsure. She was scared. The sound of footsteps behind me made me stiffen. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. I felt David's presence before I saw him, his steady, purposeful steps echoing in the stillness of the night. You're not going to jump, are you? His voice was soft, but there was an edge to it that made my heart race. It wasn't an accusation, it was more of a question, one that made me realize how close I had come to the edge. I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak. The words I wanted to say, needed to say, stuck in my throat, tangled in the storm that was raging inside me. David stepped closer, standing beside me, his eyes fixed on the horizon, his expression unreadable. You can't run from this anymore, Olivia, he said, his voice low but firm. It's time to make a choice. A choice. I knew what he meant. I had been running from the truth for too long, hiding behind my job, behind the walls I had so carefully constructed. But now, standing here, I realized that I couldn't outrun it anymore. I had to make a decision, and it had to be now. The problem was, I didn't know what the right decision was. Should I confront Ethan? Should I listen to David and embrace the mess he was offering, the chaos that seemed to come with the truth? Or should I walk away, leave everything behind, and try to live a life free of the baggage that had been holding me down for so long? I felt my stomach tighten at the thought. Could I really leave it all behind? Could I walk away from the life I had worked so hard to build? But then, I thought about Ethan. About the way his face had haunted me, the way his presence had stirred something deep inside me, something I thought I had buried long ago. Could I ever truly move forward if I didn't confront him? Could I ever truly be free if I let him and the past linger like a shadow over everything I did? David was watching me closely, his gaze intense but not judgmental. This isn't just about you and Ethan, Olivia. This is bigger than him. You need to understand that. There are people out there, people who've been watching you. Watching both of us. I stiffened. What are you talking about? David didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to face me fully, his eyes narrowing as though weighing the words he was about to say. The people who want control. They know about you, about your past, and they're ready to use it against you. If you don't take control now, you'll be dragged into something you can't escape. His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. The calm, logical part of my brain wanted to deny it, to push it away as just another one of David's manipulative tactics. But the truth, the fear that I had been burying for so long, bubbled to the surface. Could this really be happening? The thought of it, of being powerless, of having my life turned into a pawn in someone else's game, made my blood run cold. I had always been in control. I had always been the one who made the choices. But now, I was beginning to see how little control I actually had. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. What do you want me to do? The words felt foreign coming from my lips, as if I wasn't even sure I wanted to hear the answer. David didn't hesitate. I want you to choose. It's time, Olivia. You've been avoiding this moment for too long. Now, you need to take a stand. I closed my eyes, the weight of his words pressing down on me like a vice. For the first time in a long time, I felt small. Vulnerable. I had been running for so long, afraid of what would happen if I faced the truth, if I confronted the past that had shaped me. But now, standing here with David, with everything I had worked to protect hanging in the balance, I knew that running wasn't an option anymore. I couldn't hide from this. I can't do this, I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of it all. I can't make this decision. I don't know what the right choice is. David stepped closer, his presence almost overwhelming. You don't have to have all the answers, Olivia. But you do have to make a choice. You have to decide who you want to be. I felt my heart pound in my chest as I looked out at the city below, the lights flickering like distant stars. In that moment, I realized something crucial. The person I had become, strong, independent, in control, wasn't who I was at all. It was a mask I had worn to protect myself from the truth. And now, it was time to let that mask fall. With a trembling breath, I turned to face David. I'm not sure I'm strong enough to do this, I said, my voice barely audible. But I can't run anymore. I can't keep pretending. David gave a small nod, as if he had been waiting for me to say those words. Then it's time to stop running, Olivia. Time to fight for what's yours. I didn't know if I was ready. I didn't know if I had the strength to face everything that was coming. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something shift inside me, a flicker of resolve, a glimmer of strength I thought I had lost. I had a choice. And I wasn't going to run from it anymore. It was time to take a stand. The hospital was quieter now, the hum of machines and the soft shuffle of nurses filling the spaces between moments of stillness. My feet carried me through the halls, the weight of the last few days pressing down on my chest, but there was a sense of calm, strange, fleeting within me. The decision had been made. It wasn't easy, it wasn't clean, but it was mine. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. I walked past the familiar sounds of busy doctors and nurses, a reminder of the life I had built, the life I had worked so hard to protect. The world outside these walls had been trying to pull me in, drag me back into a past I had fought to forget, but now I was standing on the other side of that moment. And I wasn't sure where it would take me. I had made my choice. I had faced the truth, and with it, I had confronted my own fear. But it wasn't without consequences. The conversations I'd had with Ethan, the truths I'd uncovered about myself, had irrevocably changed me. I was no longer the woman who thought she could outrun her past. I wasn't the woman who could bury her feelings and pretend everything was fine. No, I was different now. But that difference didn't come without a price. The weight of it all still hung around me, heavier than I had expected. And as I sat in the empty break room, staring at the untouched cup of coffee in front of me, I realized just how much I had sacrificed to get here. But then again, maybe that was the point. I had sacrificed everything I thought I knew about myself to find out who I really was. I had let go of the safe, controlled world I had built in order to confront the truth that had been chasing me for years. I couldn't run from it anymore. I thought back to the moment on the rooftop, when David had stood beside me and made me choose. He had been right, in a way I hadn't been able to see at the time. I had been so afraid of the truth, so afraid of what it meant for me and my future, that I had tried to hide from it. But that night, under the cold, indifferent sky, I had made the choice to face it head-on. And now, here I was, still breathing, still standing, even if it felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. I reached for my phone, my fingers hesitating over the screen as I scrolled through my messages. The texts from Ethan were still there, each one a reminder of the past I had tried so desperately to escape. I didn't know what to do with them. Part of me wanted to respond, wanted to scream at him for everything he had put me through. But another part of me, the part that had learned to let go, knew that engaging with him again would only drag me further into the emotional quicksand I had been stuck in for so long. So, I deleted them. All of them. Each message was a chain that tied me to a version of myself I no longer recognized. The woman I had been with him wasn't the woman I was now. But even as I hit delete, I knew there was still a piece of me that would always carry the weight of that relationship. I couldn't change that. I couldn't erase it. But I could choose how I let it affect me. And that, I realized, was the real power. Not in running, not in hiding, but in choosing how to carry the burden of the past while moving forward into the future. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. The patients, the rounds, the constant hum of the hospital, it all became a distant background to my own thoughts. I moved through it mechanically, doing what I needed to do, but my mind kept returning to the conversation with David. To the choice I had made. He had told me I was the key to something bigger, that the people who had been watching me weren't finished yet. That the fight wasn't over. But as I stood there in the sterile, quiet corridors of the hospital, I realized I wasn't sure I cared anymore. The fight wasn't just about survival. It wasn't just about winning. It was about reclaiming my own peace, my own sense of self. And I couldn't keep fighting a battle that wasn't mine to fight. I had spent so much time focusing on everyone else, the patients, the hospital, my career, that I had forgotten to look at what I truly needed. What I truly wanted. I wasn't just a nurse. I wasn't just someone who fixed broken people. I was someone who needed to heal, too. By the time my shift ended, the weight in my chest had loosened. The fog that had clouded my mind for weeks was starting to lift, and for the first time, I could see clearly. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, or where the choices I had made would take me, but I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't the same person I had been when I woke up that morning. I had faced my demons. I had confronted the past that had tried to keep me in its grip. And though I still didn't have all the answers, I knew I was on the right path. My future wasn't written in stone, but it was mine to shape. I left the hospital that night with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The streets were quieter than usual, the city's pulse slow and steady as I walked home. The weight of the world that had been pressing down on my shoulders for so long was finally lifting, and in its place, I felt something else: hope. Hope that I could rebuild the life I wanted, that I could take back control and make choices that were truly mine. Hope that I could learn to trust myself again, to trust my instincts, and to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made. I wasn't sure what the future held. I didn't know where this path would lead, or if I would ever be completely free from the ghosts of my past. But I knew one thing: I was no longer running. I was standing still, facing the unknown, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. As I walked through the door to my apartment, I took a deep breath, letting the familiar sights and sounds of home wash over me. For the first time, I truly felt like I was home. And that, I realized, was the beginning of my real journey.